It's first of all, thank you for this interview. For us, it's a pleasure to have you in this event, talking about education and specifically education in corporations, and also how corporations get together with universities to collaborate together again with different perspectives of doing things together and developing their talent. So let me introduce you. Randy Fisher is an expert in learning and development professional of more than 10 years of experience in designing, training, and e-learning programs for corporations and non-profit organizations and private sector companies. He has an expertise in developing and managing innovative learning projects that build capacity involving design, delivery, and evaluation of engaging, participatory, and motivating e-learning programs, courses, and learning delivered in-house or remotely. I know that you have a lot of experience, Randy, in education in corporations, but also for startups and for different types of organizations. So I would like to start our conversation with, what do you think are the most important regarding the education? Where is it heading, the education in corporations? Which is the future that you see for education in corporations today?
Okay, so thank you very much for having me and inviting me. I'm really excited by this opportunity to share some of the things that I have learned and observed. I'm certainly not an expert in Chile matters, but I'll just share what I've learned. And I think the key is always, whenever one learns another perspective, to adapt it to the local situation, because you know best. You know what works.
Absolutely.
And together with innovative practices, techniques, and solutions from another place, adapted to the local culture, that can truly make a difference. So let me just say, the key challenge facing education and companies today is really the transition to a digital economy. And we see it everywhere now, particularly because of COVID. The response to COVID, using Zoom, online media, people using new skills, that points the way to a future where universities can benefit and upskill learners. Companies can enhance their operations. In fact, keep their operations going in the midst of incredible turbulence. So I see it's this, some places are perhaps more advanced, but it's really this transition to a digital workforce, new ways of doing business, expanding markets, promoting products in a digitized form, using online means to reach new customers, new markets, and new opportunities. In preparation for this talk today, what are some of the areas of opportunity? Certainly, companies are looking to equip their workforces or their employees with how to function properly, how to function well, making the right decisions, soft skills, how to conduct oneself in a Zoom interview. I mean, you'd be surprised, but I see around the world, many people seem to be going to the bathroom and doing very pleasurable things online that are really not appropriate for a professional environment. Diversity, how to take advantage of the diverse elements in one's workforce to identify new opportunities and actually pursue them. So those are some sort of topic areas. Most of us over the past 6, 7, 8 months have spent a lot of time in Zoom or go to meeting, this sort of thing. And we realize that while it's a good way of communicating, it's maybe not the most interesting and interactive. So another direction that people are seeing is that an increased desire, increased appetite for gamification of learning. How can we make learning more interactive, more engaging, and take advantage of the learner's focus online? And eventually we'll get back to in-person, and it will be a blend of in-person and online. But how do we make that, I could say, much more engaging? Other trends in terms of learning is technical skills. So we talked about gamification, technical skills, web development, that's huge here in the United States. Any kind of, web development, programming, coding, boot camps, any of that stuff to support companies in a digital transformation of their operation. Those skills are essential. Another area for opportunity is, as we are seeing actually with the COVID, the vaccines, and also you see this in disasters, is the need to develop learning in the area of supply chain management, logistics, coordination, distribution. Okay, those big opportunities to distribute, say, vaccines, you need software, you need coordination, you need leadership skills to figure out how to do that properly and achieve the business results. Let me just say one other thing which is important here is, I mentioned diversity. People come from different backgrounds and have different capacities in terms of their language. And I see that as a real opportunity for Chile, is to leverage the knowledge, the Spanish language, to develop courses and learning in the language that is culturally appropriate and sensitive to many of the people who actually work in that language. It doesn't make sense. I mean, it does, and you're often the recipient of poorly translated and maladapted, learning, I guess you call it, courses or modules, etc., that are not appropriate for Spanish language. So I think that's a real opportunity. And if I was if I was advising a company in this space or a university in this space, I would say those would be the areas to focus on.
Absolutely. It's very, very interesting because, this COVID pandemic has been an accelerator, as you say, of the digital transformation. And that means that many people need new skills, as you say. And in that sense, which are the main challenges that in that sense that companies are facing today in relation to the skill and the talent development of the collaborators, and in that sense how universities can help them?
I could go through a list, but I really like to present an encompassing idea upon which that list flows through naturally. And I think, and this is a challenge both in US, but also in your country, and that is that the companies need assistance. They're not customer centric. If you do not have a good understanding of your customer, or maybe put another way, it is best to spend the time to dive in a deeper way to understand what the customer's needs are.
Absolutely.
Why do they need this learning? Before you even develop a product, before you even answer the call to respond to, what they say they think they need. What is the business result that they want to achieve by virtue of, a request for learning? I think by diving into, more deeply understanding who the customer is, who the customers of the customer are, that will lead to much greater opportunity and insight into what to develop, who's going to buy it, how it's going to be used. A big challenge that companies face is they'll develop a product, and this is anywhere, they'll develop a learning product and it won't be used.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Software, same problem. And that's because there wasn't enough attention focused on understanding the customer. Now, you might say, oh, well, a company, well, we'll make money on the first sale. But actually, it doesn't work that way. You make money on the second sale and the third sale by deepening the relationship with the customer and showing that you can deliver results. Then all parties want to work together and achieve even more. So I think that's how I would answer that question. You know, in terms of some specifics around that, you certainly want to take models and practices from other countries, other systems, but always to make sure to inject or involve a local component to make sure that it's culturally appropriate so you could actually work with it. To build local capacity. Sure, it's great to connect with other people, but you want to invest in people locally so they can deliver the solution, so they can develop the skills themselves to be self-sufficient in a way and take their products and skill development to an entirely new level. One of the things we talked about before, in preparation for this conversation today is, business and even, research, for example, at an academic level, it's all about people. It's the people you know. See, we don't never want to forget that. There is incredible depth in the alumni, the graduates of universities who are at different, educational and research institutions around the world who care very much about Chile and want to help it grow and prosper. And I think it's really important to connect with people in that way and leverage those resources. Let's see, another thought too is when you're designing programs at the university level, before just jumping in or taking something off the shelf, put together that advisory panel, but test what you develop to make sure that it is relevant to the needs of the workforce today. So a lot of times advisory panels are stocked by people who are consultants. That's not the way to go.
Absolutely.
Because the consultants aren't going to use the materials. It's got to be the people in the companies that are on those advisory panels. So I would have a mix of people, researchers, people from the academic community, people say from also the tech transfer office, because I'll talk about that a bit later, is they perform, HubTech performs a valuable function in being a bridge between the corporate sector and the university community. It can translate some of the feedback one receives so that it's more palatable, interesting, relevant, appropriate to either side. And if there's any bumps in the road or misperceptions around communication, then you have an ally at the table who can advocate on both sides.
Absolutely.
That's how I'd answer that.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And one of the things that takes on my attention is the importance that you mentioned, that we also in HubTech see it, is focus on the needs, focus on customers, and how do you see that the relationship between researchers and I'm going now with what we do in HubTech. We do in HubTech, as you say, is that translation of cultures between universities and companies in order to make a collaboration that can produce results. And what are the key points in that relationship that should be addressed according to your experience to deliver results that are productive?
Okay. So in my experience in the academic community, there is a definite career path for researchers. Researchers are often pursuing opportunities to do research and also grant money.
Yeah.
Okay? And there is a certain, whether it's a hierarchy or a career path or development path for a researcher. And there's a certain language, there's a certain code, there's a certain vocabulary, a culture, if you will, among the research community. And guess what? That's different in the company. They too have a path towards the money. They too have a certain vocabulary. They too have different systems. And when you're in the research community, you don't have access to that sort of language. And so it makes it hard to communicate. When you might actually be on the same page, but you don't even know you're there. And the same from the company.
Yeah.
So you kind of need to build in or have an ally that is a bridge between the two worlds, between those two cultures. That's critical. If I go back to understanding who the customer is, well, gee, you know, there's a couple of customers in this conversation. If I'm a researcher and I have certain skills and I want to connect with industry, well, I have at least two potential customers. One customer is the company. One customer might be the stakeholders in my university community, even the funders in my community who might care about how successful I've been. And on the other side, the company, they will want and will be sort of reassured if you spend the time really trying to understand not just what it is they want to develop, but why they want to develop it. What need does it meet in terms of their business? Because they be coming to you to solve a problem that's preventing them from growing to potentially a new market. So I'd say, you know, in a way it comes back to the customer, and it comes back to really understanding the language, the vocabulary, the culture of the different players, actors that you're dealing with. I would like to say something else too, and that is one of the mistakes I think that companies make, regardless of where they are, is they have an idea for an innovation. It could be a researcher who is in love with his or her technology, and he or she hasn't bothered to really dive in to understand who actually needs this technology, who's going to buy it, how does it connect to a larger business need, and what segments of the market would it appeal to. You know, when you talk to your mother and you say, hey, Ma, guess what I'm doing in the lab? It's so exciting. And your mother goes, yes, it is, without really understanding it, but it's very encouraging. That does not translate to solving a business problem or even generating revenue, whether it's for you, for your university, even for the company. So I think there's some due diligence that has to take place, some actually research on the business relationship that has to take place that builds confidence in whatever you're going in the relationship that you're going to develop, but it also creates opportunity that you may never have thought of before, because you're able to access a new body of knowledge and consider how it's going to be utilized.
Absolutely. And from the business perspective, what could be done with them? And I'm speaking from the haptics perspective. We are approaching also and seeing that there's a need in companies to learn about the cultures of researchers. So what would you say to companies about it?
Come one, come all. You know, I try to make it as welcoming. You know, and one of the most wonderful qualities that one can have is curiosity, is both empathy and curiosity. Really being interested in someone else's perspective. And I think, you know, HubTech can perform some really valuable bridging functions between the two worlds. One, it can use events like this to begin to connect with the people in both worlds, in academia, in the universities, but also in the companies, to begin to facilitate a dialogue, some knowledge exchange, even some knowledge transfer, by having a series of events like this, and also in-person sort of forum or roundtables where they can begin to explore areas of mutual interest. You might have some technologies that could be of great interest to the companies, but if they don't know this exists, they don't know that this capacity exists, it's a missed opportunity. By the same token, the companies may, because of COVID or changing market forces, will need to diversify their markets, appeal to different customers. And really, it's through the dialogue and sort of joint activities that HubTech can facilitate, where you start to uncover areas for mutual exploration, discovery, and opportunity.
I agree with you. I really feel that's the one part of the essence of what we do, and that we're trying to make it happen. And we're 2 minutes for closing. So what would you say to Chilean culture about the opportunities of Chile or Chile ecosystem in entering this collaboration relationship between companies and universities?
I think it's a really exciting time. I think you have some very natural advantages, with a Spanish language, but also you have the benefit to leapfrog ahead of other competitors because you're going outside of your borders to find the best practices and then bring them back and adapt with a local flavor. I often talk about the example in Africa when they wanted to have greater telecom connectivity. So instead of trying to put landlines everywhere, they just jumped to the cell phones.
Yeah, directly.
And then there were all kinds of opportunities that came about it. So linear is not necessarily, well, it usually isn't the right way, okay? So, but being able to leap ahead of your competitors and share amongst the stakeholders, and I just want to say the stakeholders are not just the universities and the companies, it is also government people, policymakers, even politicians. Invite them into the conversation, give them an opportunity to shout and amplify the message from the rooftops. And then everyone can participate in the success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I like very much that leapfrog concept of going direct to the new technologies and new cultures. So, Randy, it has been really a pleasure. Again, we appreciate and thank you very much for your time and your disposition for this interview, but also for giving us your vision and helping us also from your part of the world and your experience to give this leapfrog.
I would just say one last thing. I say, besides thank you, learning is a sustainable and renewable resource. It's unlimited.
Absolutely. I love that. I'll take it. So thank you, Randy, very, very much. And well, let's continue this conversation. You know that we will start doing many things with you, and so thank you very much.